Okay, we're going to start now the Hagdama here, Sefer Mesilas Yesharim. I've been learning Mesilas Yesharim for 25 years, but this is the first time I'm giving a shir on Mesilas Yesharim. Let's begin. In my opinion, in my humble opinion, the most important paragraph in all of Mesilas Yesharim is the very first paragraph of the Hagdama. This is the yesod to learning not only this Sefer, but it's the yesod of learning anything, and certainly anything that which relates to a person's own personal growth. Amar Machaber, the writer here, Moshe Chaim Lutzato, one of the greatest Kabbalists to live, certainly in the last 500 years, 1,000 years, died at the age of 39 and is buried in Tveria, I believe. He lived in Akko, but first lived in Italy before that. Already was known as a tremendous Talmid Chacham in his young years, and had a Chabura learning Kabbalah. And he wrote his Sefer Mesilas Yesharim, the pathways of the straight. Yashar, people who go straight. What is the pathway of the straight? So Amar Mechaber, Moshe Chaim Lutzato, the Ramchal, says, I wrote this Sefer not to teach people things they don't know. But it's to remind people. It's to remind people things that they know very, very well, and try to publicize these ideas a little bit more. In most of my words, you won't find things that are chidushim that people don't know. People are not mesupuk talking about people of Yirei Shamayim. The truth of the matter is that Rabbi Victor Miller wrote a Hagdama. The great Rabbi Victor Miller wrote a Hagdama to the original copy of the Feldheim edition of Mesilas Yesharim, and he says there are plenty of chidushim in this sefer. It's just written in such a simplistic style that it's given over like Rashi. Like, you automatically assume that whatever he says is correct because it's written so simply. Like Rashi writes things so simply. How do you know when Rashi's saying a chiddush? Look at Tosfos. Look at the other Rishonim. You'll see where Rashi's saying is chidushim. Same thing over here. There are plenty of chidushim over here, but they have to be pointed out. Now, somebody pointed out to me one time that in every word here, there's Kabbalah. As simple as it's written, there are code words written in the Sefer, which refer to different ideas in Kabbalah. I am not going to be teaching it that way. I do not know enough Kabbalah in order to do things like that, and therefore I am not going to teach it. So is there a tremendous depth to this Sefer? Yes, there is. So anybody who wants can go find the sources in Kabbalah. The Ramchal has other svarim which are very, very mufursim. They're very, very well known, that are much, very deep. This is a very simple, straightforward Sefer, a guide to growth. Other svarim that the Ramchal wrote, like Derech Hashem, or Das Tvunos, or many of the other svarim that he's written, have such great depth to the hidden secrets of the world that anybody who wants to, there's access to them in both English and Hebrew. Anybody can have a Derech Hashem that's been translated more than once into English to understand the way that Hashem runs the world. Das Tvunos is also a very, very, very deep sefer of our very deep concepts. Anybody can learn any of those svarim to see really the depth of where this can go. And if you really, really want to do things well, learn them at the same time, or learn those first and then come back to Mesilas Yesharim, or learn those svarim 3 or 4 times first and get familiar with those concepts, and then come back and see how he applies them. The Mesilas Yesharim is more of the practical outcome of all of those other svarim. How do we live lamaisa based on knowing the depth of what the world is about and how HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants us to live in that world? So you're more than welcome. Anybody is more than welcome. Take out those svarim, like I said. Feldheim certainly has copies in English. I do believe Art Scroll now also has copies, different translations into English. If English is your language, certainly. If Hebrew is your language, there's certainly, you can find so many different types, different with Perushim, without Perushim, certainly available. So when the Ramchal says over here, everything over here is Pashut. Everything I wrote over here is Pashut. El shekvi roy pirsum keneged mash amitas am geluyim lekol But it's because it's so poshut. That's exactly the problem. The problem is things that are so simple, we just don't take the time to think about. It's like learning Gemara. When you learn Gemara by yourself, it's very easy to fly through it, especially if you know how to read, you can fly through it. A lot of times, the best way to get into Iyun is try to explain a Rashi to a boy who's just started learning Gemara. You have to explain every word, and you'll start to see things in it. Wait a second. Hey, that doesn't make 100 sense. You have to be so medactic, so careful to translate every word for the boy. In your own mind, you start to think, wait a second, what does that mean? Why did Rashi write that? I have to explain it to him on his level, but that means I have to be so simple that I have to get down to the smallest little pieces. And once I get down there, I see, wait a second, I wouldn't have written it that way. I would have written it a different way. A lot of times we take things for granted in such a way that we don't actually think about what's going on. And when you stop and you start to actually think about what's going on, it's amazing. There's so much depth. Every little detail is meaningful. That's really when a person starts to understand things. And that's really what the Ramchal is saying over. We're going to finish over here. Like I said, we're not going to take too long on these shurim. Tonight, we didn't even finish the first paragraph yet. We haven't even gotten to the most crucial line of it yet. Maybe tomorrow, Mesilas Yesharim. Maybe. Or maybe next week. L'maisa, it's very clear from what he's saying over here, just to be misakem, to summarize, people will forget. It's very, very important to constantly review the most important things in life, because you need to keep them in the forefront of your mind. You have to live by those concepts. The more we keep them in the front of our mind, the more we'll be able to live with them. We just take them for granted. It's easy not to forget, like if you take a test, you'll be able to write the right answer. That's not what it means to forget. To forget means I'll forget to live it. I'll forget to live like that. I might know the answer, but I won't be able to live it unless I really have it in the forefront of my mind, which is why it's so important to learn these concepts. So we'll stop over here.